Hey everyone, this is Nick, and Google has a sort of deserved reputation for killing off their services if they're not immediately profitable. From Google Reader, which had the potential to be a news money printing machine, to Stadia, which had the best game streaming tech in the industry, or even Google+, which arguably was one of the best social networks out there, Google just kills off their services. And since Google kills basically everything new that they launch, there's a big question. Should you invest time, money, effort, and learning into anything new that Google puts out? Let's discuss right after I tell you everything about today's sponsor. Thanks to OnlyOffice for sponsoring this video. OnlyOffice is the only office suite I use on all my Linux PCs nowadays. It's open source, it's fast, it looks good, and it's super compatible with Microsoft Office formats. You can download it for free and run it locally on any computer, whatever the operating system, including Android and iOS. Or you can couple that with a free personal cloud that lets you edit online and can be connected to a lot of storage services you might already use, like Google Drive, Dropbox, Nextcloud, OneDrive, and a lot more. This personal cloud has received a big update recently with a dark theme, a free library of templates. It supports a ton more languages, and it has a lot of hotkeys you can use to navigate, on top of having an interface refresh. If you need a powerful, cloud-ready, and compatible Office suite for Linux or any other operating system, I don't think you can do better than OnlyOffice. So head over to the link in the description below to download it or create your own personal cloud. Okay, first let's have some fun with the most interesting services that ended up on the chopping block. Like Google Audio Ads, which was a way for advertisers to put AdWord ads inside of AM or FM radio. I'm not kidding, this existed for 7 months. But I am kidding, it wasn't great. Let's start with the biggest ones. Google+, for example. Google+ was Google's answer to Facebook in the form of a big social network. It started with a ton of advantages, a fantastic photo component with features that were basically Google Photos, but inside a social network. It was better structured, with circles you could share stuff with, not just publishing to everyone all at once, so you could create communities and you could facilitate communication about specific topics. It was fast, it looked cool, and since most people already had a Google account, it was super easy to use. And it failed, mostly because it wasn't different enough that people felt the need to recreate their connections, their networks, their pages, their communities there. And at some point, the average session on Google+ lasted only for a few seconds, which is not a good sign. It still subsists as some kind of company enterprise intranet thingy, but it also means that Google cannot start a streaming service because they're all called something plus and Google Plus is already taken. Then we have Google Reader. This service was basically what made RSS feeds useful. It collected articles from the sources you added to Reader, and it was basically your own curated newsfeed with categories, easy access to the full article, and all of that for free. It lasted for 7 years before Google killed it. Again, a service that really wasn't marketed at all, or wasn't promoted at all, or had no business plan, even though Google could probably have figured out a way to market curated news to users and make some money off of that. Like, it's news, selected for the user, with interests from the user. They could have made a ton of money with that, but they didn't. So now you can still use RSS feeds on a lot of other platforms, Feedly being one of the biggest ones. Next, and more recently, Stadia. Stadia was Google's game streaming service and it had the best tech available. It streamed better at higher resolutions with better frame rates and less compression than its competitors. And it lasted for 3 years. Again, lack of marketing, a stupid business proposition of paying full price for games, plus a subscription model, when you had stuff like Game Pass, like the literal Netflix for games. And speaking of Stadia, I recently had a talk with someone who works at Ubisoft, and apparently the Google Stadia team grossly underestimated how much it would cost to have a game developed for Stadia or even just a port by a factor of 100, which means that they clearly did not study the market at all before they launched. And there are a ton of others. The dozens of messaging services like Hangouts, Allo, or Wave. the Google Magazines kiosk, the Google Play TV and Movies app, Google Inbox, Google Cloud Print, Google Cardboard, Picasa, and a lot of others, a lot of which had great tech and good potential. Google is also the ultimate hipster of tech companies. They made stuff before it was cool. Like, they basically made Twitter before Twitter in the form of Jaiku. They had a vaccine finder tool 10 years before the pandemic. And they canned it 8 years before the pandemic. They had Pi, which was Slack, but before Slack existed. Oh, and they had AR glasses ages before the Zuckerberg even dreamt of having legless avatars in the metaverse. And yeah, Google Glass kinda sucked, but I still wasted 5 months of my life developing an app for it at one of my jobs, so I'm still pissed. Google just doesn't stick with services when they can't imagine a business plan in the first years, or when they just never thought about having a business plan for that service, or when their business plan is basically written on a diner napkin in 30 minutes, like with Stadia. But that's not true of every service. There are exceptions, like the Nexus program, that then turned into the Pixel range of devices. Nexus was Google's way of bringing vanilla Android to consumers, using other manufacturers to do so. They used Samsung, LG, Motorola, or Huawei. When they realized manufacturers wouldn't really promote these devices, they canned the program and launched their own, the Pixel line, where they manufacture, or at least source manufacturers, in their own name. And why is that important in the context of Google services? Well, because it proves that when Google can imagine a business plan for the long term, they do stick with services that aren't super profitable. Pixel doesn't bring in much revenue for Google. In 2021, it was estimated to be about $8 billion. That's no small change, but compare that to the total $260 billion they made in 2021, and it's nothing. YouTube is also a very small business for Google. At $8.6 billion in 2021, it doesn't contribute much to Google's total revenue, and probably even less to their profits. So why does Google stick it out with these services and not with others? And the answer is simple. That's because these things are gateways for Google to actually fund its other main business, which is ads. With pure vanilla Android and the Pixel line, Google is basically trying to build their own platform, which has escaped them. The biggest phone manufacturer for Android is Samsung. And by default, when you buy a Samsung phone, you're not really using Google Ads or Google Apps or Google Services. So they need something to retain control of the Android ecosystem. Even though it doesn't generate much in terms of sales, it allows them to keep a hand on the ad business. And YouTube, it's probably the biggest personal data farm on the planet. Look at it. Every time you watch something, you favorite something, you follow a channel, Google learns more and more about your interest, about what you like, about what you don't like. It's extremely invaluable to offer targeted ads. So yes, Google can stick with services or products that aren't big money makers or aren't profitable at all. But that's only if these things are contributing so much to Google's other businesses that closing them down would hurt ad revenue in the long run. And so, unless Google's latest service or app is something that helps them collect more data or sell more ads, its longevity is about 3 years. But is that really an issue? I mean, 3 years is kind of a long time in tech, so is it really a problem if you can only use a service for 3 years? Well, there are multiple problems. First, as a user, it's never fun to have something you use and rely upon being shuttered. You have to download your data and hope you can import it and use it somewhere else, which isn't necessarily doable. For example, Stadia users don't take their games with them, and their saves are lost, unless developers are okay to ensure they're portable to other platforms. Second, you can lose money you invested. In the case of Stadia, Google refunded purchases, but they could just as easily have said, "Too bad," and people would just have lost their purchased games. Then you have to find another service that does the same thing as the one that just closed down. Learn how it works, how you use it, the various shortcuts or integrations with other programs and services. It's a big learning curve. Listen, I'm lazy. Once I learn something, I don't want to relearn it to use something that does the same job but different. Oh wait, maybe that's why a lot of people don't switch to Linux. Nah, it's gotta be lack of marketing. Now, also there's an image problem. When you like a service or product, you tend to recommend it to other people. You praise it and you tell others to try it. When that service crashes down, you're left looking like an idiot for wasting your friend's time and money. And the last big problem is consumer confidence. With Google killing services left and right, no one is actually confident that anything new will last long enough that it's worth it to learn how to use it or invest money in it. And then you have a self-fulfilling prophecy. As people lose confidence in your service, they don't use them. And as they don't use them, it doesn't make any money. So Google kills it, and so people were like, you know what? I was right, they killed it. And the cycle repeats. So yes, Google killing their services way too fast is a problem, because it damages the company's image, which isn't already that great with all the data collecting, at least for people who care about privacy, and also because it makes your own consumers look like idiots. So, should you use anything new that Google develops? Well, it depends. If you're okay with the idea to start over in 3 years, then yes, absolutely. Google does experiment and innovate a lot, even if that doesn't lead to anything. And if you're really passionate about tech and you don't hate Google as a company, there's no reason not to give a shot to whatever they come up with next. Just make sure that you have an exit strategy, just in case. If, on the other hand, you like having a perfect setup, you don't like changing your habits, or you can't bear the idea of losing any data or time, then no, I would recommend you stay away from anything Google develops in the future unless it's very clear it's a crucial asset for their ad business. In which case, I have no idea why you would want to use it, because it means that this service will steal your user data faster than Liam Hemsworth stole Geralt from Henry Cavill. Yeah, I know that's not how it happened, but I'm still mad about it, okay? And if you're a company, you should absolutely stay away from any Google service when it releases. Wait a few years before jumping in just to check if things are actually going smoothly. Because wasting time and money just because something looks cool is never a good bet, whatever your CTO thinks. Now, personally, I will absolutely stay away from every new Google service unless it's something that could actually really help me as a YouTuber and as a YouTube business. I don't like Google as a company, and I think my YouTube channel already gives them a lot more data than I wish they had on me. But it's also very easy for me to not use Google stuff because YouTube is basically their only service that I actually use. But what I use to make these videos is a laptop from today's sponsor. Tuxedo is a company based in Germany, but they ship worldwide a huge selection of Linux laptops and desktops. So they actually have Linux pre-installed. And why is that important? Well, buying a laptop from Tuxedo means you remove all the guesswork from buying any other Windows-based laptop and trying to run Linux on it. When you buy from Tuxedo, you know it's gonna work, because the parts have been picked to be compatible with Linux, and if a few things need tweaking, they have repos that you can add to actually add the support for everything to run perfectly. So there's basically no questions to ask yourself. You buy the laptop and it works. And they have a big range with options for every price point, from the smallest ultrabooks to the biggest tower workstations or gaming laptops or gaming workstations or laptop workstations. Any combination of those words, it works. And they have tons of options to personalize your computer with a custom laser-etched keyboard layout or your own logo engraved on the lid of your laptop. So if you need a new device and you want to support Linux development and you also want to make sure that Linux will run perfectly on your device, click the link in the description below and get yourself a device from Tuxedo. They're really good. So thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to write a comment. And if you didn't like the video, well, you can always click that dislike button. And if you really enjoy what I do and the channel, there's a super thanks button underneath the video, there's a PayPal link in the description, or there are links to my Patreon memberships and YouTube memberships. Both get access to a weekly podcast on Monday, where I talk about tech, open source, Linux, the channel, and personal things, and you also get to vote on the next topics that I'll cover on the channel. So thanks everyone for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!